Yeah. I haven't done school.
We've done a lot of state ones.
Yeah, exactly. I've done mostly everything I've done in state.
I'm going to ask for you to please take your seats and we will get started. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to the Cromwell Middle School Building Committee's open house. Tonight is for you, our community. We wanted you to be able to come learn about this important project. We want you to have time to get your questions answered and have an opportunity for you to see what's possible for our students if they had the chance to learn in an innovative building, a building that supports 21st century curriculum, teaching, and learning's best practices. Before we get started, there are a few people I'd like to thank and recognize. Our middle school principal, Ann Cocciolo, thank you for opening the doors and welcoming us into your building and your community. The members of the Cromwell Board of Education, they've kicked this project off nearly 6 years ago and have been working tirelessly to see it to this point. All the teacher volunteers around the building are here to tell you about their experience in today's building and what they could do for our students in a more modern space. Our other town elected officials, I see we have town council here, Board of Finance. They're also here to learn about the project and also hear from you, their constituents. And lastly, but certainly not least, our IT and custodial team who worked all day to make sure that everything was ready to run tonight. So tonight's presentation will have a few speakers. We'll have our building committee chair, Rosanna Glinch, kick things off and share the decisions that we've made about the project up to this point. Then we'll have a teacher and parent from the district, Jane Sarnowski, provide her perspective. And then lastly, we'll have a Q&A session where we'll invite the architect that's been working with us on the conceptual drawings, Tecton Architects, to answer any further questions. So first I'll introduce Rosanna Glynn. Thank you.
All right, thank you and welcome everyone. I'm really excited to see everyone here today to learn about this project. We're going to go over the rationale for the project, a little bit of background, key design decisions that we made as a building committee, and some important dates that we should all be aware of moving forward. So up here you'll see a picture of the current middle school, and you'll notice that the middle school was originally built in 1954. We've had some additions put in place since then. 1956 we had our first addition, 1962, 79, and then the last addition was in 2001. That would be those trailer rooms out in the back, which actually are no longer in use. So there really hasn't been a renovation of this building or any major changes within the buildings since pretty much 1979. So when we looked at the building project as a whole, we were really focusing first and foremost on our students, what they needed to be successful in middle school, what they needed to be successful after middle school, and also, looking forward beyond that. We also looked at safety, safety for the students, safety for the staff, the facility conditions itself, and programmatic needs. And there's some photos at the bottom, just some snapshots of the fun areas in the school that you don't really get to see, which also helped in our decisions. So we had 3 options that were provided to us from our architect partners, Tecton. The first option was to renovate the existing building, and what that means is you take the building as you see it today and you gut out certain areas and upgrade and update. So the footprint itself would have not changed. We would have had to add extra space because we have educational specifications, which are our requirements for the new building, and the building as it exists today would not be able to meet all that. So the building would expand just a little bit, but for the most part, option 1 was to take the building as it is today and just give it a new paint job. Option number 2, which is renovate as new, kept 55% of the current footprint of the school, and that really comes down to the auditorium that you're in today, the gymnasium, the media center, the cafeteria, the administration offices, as well as central office, which is the Board of Ed office. So all of that would have remained in place as far as square footage. And then they would have added, call it an academic wing to the left of it, and left side of the building, which would be all your classrooms. And then the classrooms that you toured today would be torn down. So that was option number 2. Option number 3 is to create an entirely new building right on top of the soccer field, and then tear down this building and rebuild the soccer field where we're sitting right now. So those are the 3 options that were provided to us. So we spent a lot of time debating all 3 options. We did a lot of research. We looked at best practices across the state, across the country. We went and toured another school to see how they approached renovation. We worked really closely with Tecton, our architects, to come up with some conceptual designs to see, what are the 3 options really look like, and would they meet all the requirements that we as a building committee and as a community would require for our students and for our community. So the first thing that we looked at was safety. So as you came in the building today, you came in through that entrance right by the cafeteria. And as you'll notice, if you're standing out there looking out, all you see pretty much is grass and the circle for the bus route. The new building provides a unique safety opportunity for our administration offices. So you'll see it in the next picture, but here in the middle, I don't know if my cursor works on here, maybe? No. Where those, in the gray section right in the middle is where the administration offices are, and they'd be facing the parking lots. So as anyone approaches the building, the administration office would be able to see everyone approaching the building. They wouldn't be, they wouldn't only have to look through like a small camera. So there's a safety measure there that really is really important for our administration, for the staff to be able to do that. Another feature with this building is this thing called Main Street. So you'll see this hallway that starts from the top and goes all the way down. It's that white strip right in the middle of the building. What this allows you to do is if you're standing in the middle of that Main Street, you can see both ends of the building and you can see who's in the main hallway. And then the other third safety factor that really sold us was this concept of these educational pods. So the grades are going to be broken up into what we call them pods, so 6th, 7th, and 8th. Each of those pods can be closed off instantly with a touch of a button from the main office. So if there were, God forbid, an intruder in the building, they can just click on a button and those sections will be closed off instantly and no one can get through there. They're magnetically shut. So the new building really provided a unique opportunity to really put safety measures in there that would make not only all the students and faculty feel comfortable, but also parents and the community as a whole. The second decision factor was curriculum. So we want to be a STEAM curriculum, which is science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. In order to do that, we would need a substantial amount of space. For example, our science labs. To do a proper science lab, you would need space for science tables, sinks, safety equipment, storage, all of that stuff that you need to do proper science experiments and to give the students full opportunity to partake in those experiments. So the current building as it is today, if we went with option 1, you would not have enough space to do that. The classrooms, because this building is built with pretty much brick and mortar, like brick walls everywhere, you really couldn't expand the classroom sizes. Right now, I think the average square footage of a classroom is like 650-ish, 700 square feet, somewhere around there. The state of Connecticut says the average square footage should be closer to 800. If you needed a science classroom, it's even bigger than that. So if we really wanted the students to have access to that science technology, you would need a bigger classroom. So option one automatically came off the table because it would not allow us to create classroom sizes big enough for our students. The new building also will allow us to create it so there's a lot of natural light, allow us to provide the students with unique experiences that really go along with STEAM, that even option two would be a challenge wish. So curriculum was one of the main concerns that we had. We wanted to make sure that whatever option we went with definitely checked off all the boxes when it came to curriculum, because what's a school for? A school is to educate. So if you're not taking full opportunity to educate our students, you're kind of wasting your money. So that was definitely one of the top two things that we looked at. The third key decision factor was the cost differential. So believe it or not, a brand new building is the least expensive option among all three options. And the reason for that is, there's a couple of reasons for it actually. First is that a new building would only take about 2 years to build. Actually, it's probably more like 16 months to build and then 6 months to tear down the current building. So say like around 2 years. A renovated project, whether it's option one or two, would have taken at least 3 years, if not more. And the reason for that is because of all the staging that would have to happen. And what staging is you have to block off sections of the building to renovate. You create temporary walls, you move students out of those areas, you do your demolition, you have to have special precautions for hazmat and all that, because this building is really, really old. There's asbestos in the walls. We don't know what's underneath the floors. So all of that work takes money, takes time, and adds to the overall cost of the project. And all that money you put into the staging and the abatement that is involved, it's money that you have to put in but doesn't stay with the building, meaning it doesn't add value to the building when you have to do that renovation work. Whereas when you're building brand new, all the money you put into the brand new building, it stays with the building because all the materials stay with it. You're not doing any of that staging work that you have to do with any kind of renovation project. So the total cost of the project for a new building is less than the other two options. So that was definitely something that we looked into. And then the fourth key decision factor was the student impact during the construction. So again, as I mentioned, a renovation project could take at least 3 years to do. A student in middle school is here for 3 years. So that would mean that their entire middle school experience in a renovation project could potentially be in a construction zone. That's not healthy for them, it's not fun for them, it doesn't provide for the full educational experience. There'll be times where they can't use the gymnasium, there'll be times they can't use the media center, they'll have to do lunch who knows where because the cafeteria is being upgraded. So it's just a complete disruption to their academic life. Whereas obviously if you're building brand new, you're building it next door. As soon as it's up and open, the kids can just move right over and there's no disruption to their educational experience whatsoever. And considering that we're just coming out of this pandemic, where a lot of kids were home for a long time, like we didn't want to extend that inconvenience on them as well. So those are the main decision factors that we talked about, and we had a lot of discussions, a lot of debate back and forth about it, and led us to the recommendation of building a new building. So here is, again, just to reiterate, the new school building provides opportunity for improved safety. You have the view from the administration, which I talked about, protected play areas, internal courtyards, and the shared program in the front classroom neighborhoods protected. So basically, again, those safety measures to make sure that those class neighborhoods or pods are closed off in case anything should happen, keeps the students very safe. The site will be improved. If anyone has students in the middle school today, I know I have two. The parent drop-off line is a complete nightmare. So all of that will get fixed. So they're going to have dedicated parent and bus circulation. centralized fields with a lot of parking, so everything around that soccer field you see today, there'd be potential parking. And I do want to just mention here that this is all conceptual, obviously. There could be changes, so that's caveat here, but conceptually this is what we're looking at right now. Dedicated entry and parking for central office. So central office is going to be located in the upper right-hand corner of the building, that little block, that will be central office. Actually, it's a better picture here. Yep, so you'll see here in the upper right-hand corner that is going to be central office, which is also the Board of Ed office, same thing. So learning opportunities, common areas. The media center is going to be the heart of the school. So number one, that pink area right there in the middle, that's going to be your media center. You're going to have full light in there. You're going to be seeing it from both floors. It's going to have an access point outdoors, so students can go outdoors from the media center and do some outdoor reading and outdoor collaboration. And it's really going to be the heart of the school. Again, the visibility for administration, I mean, this is extremely important for them and for all the students. So having that visibility to the full parking area is going to be a game changer. The main street, which I spoke about before, going to be easy lock-off gym, cafeteria, and auditorium. So, you know, we talk about the middle school as being a project for students. It is, obviously, but it's also a project for the community. So the community tends to use the auditorium, as we're all here today right now, the cafeteria, the gymnasium for sure, all the sporting events, all the sporting teams in town. So those areas will be locked off from the rest of the building. And the benefit of that is, one, custodial, right? You don't have to worry about unlocking the entire school and worrying about people roaming through the building. You can just segregate the community to those areas as needed. And efficiency too. All those come into play. So it really helps with allowing the community more access to those areas without impacting the total school at the same time. So this is a better look at the pods that I was talking about before, those neighborhoods for each grade. So each grade will have one of these little neighborhoods. And in there you'll see this purple section in the middle, the breakout space. It's going to have a lot of nice natural light. Kids can go in there and have collaborative classroom experiences in there. There'll be a courtyard that they can go out into as well. The special education will be integrated into the pods, so those students in special education will feel like they are included within the rest of their grade and they won't feel segregated at all, which is wonderful. Obviously bathrooms with each pod. And I'm not sure if you've noticed in the tour today of the lack of bathrooms in this building. It's been one of the main complaints my kids have had, but there'll be plenty of that in the new building. So it establishes that innovative learning community, and it's a really flexible setting, so we can change the classrooms, however we need, and it allows the students really to, you don't have to walk across a huge building to go from classroom to classroom. It's all centralized right there. So they spend more time in the classroom and less time trying to get from class to class. And then again, the layered uses provides layering of compartments for security. So we talked about the security areas. These routes that you have in there, they're completely, you can block them off at different intersections, and it just keeps adding layer over layer over layer of security. So anyone who attempts to get into the building will be automatically locked off, and then they have to go through many, many channels to get to anywhere, which it's just a redundancy that we need from a safety perspective. So cost. So the total cost of the new building is estimated to be about $58 million. That includes $51 million are hard costs. The hard costs are basically anything that's nailed down in the building, right? Your materials, all of that, anything that goes into the building itself is that $51 million. The soft costs are all the other administrative type costs that go into it, and it includes the there's a list here, convenient for me. Furnishings and technology, permits and fees, inspections, all of that goes into the soft costs. So the total amount is $58.6 million. The state of Connecticut will reimburse us $22 million of it. So the estimated cost to Cromwell right now is $36.5 million. Okay, at this point, I would like to welcome Jane Sarnofsky to the podium. Jane is a 6th grade teacher at CMS and is also the parent of 2 students in this district. So Jane.
You can.
I didn't have to adjust this as much as I thought. I'm also a former student of Cromwell Middle School. I grew up in Cromwell as well, and I live here today. So this school is very familiar. The auditorium looks exactly the same, and I'm pretty sure that piece of gum I stuck in row 4 over there is probably still there. No, I'm just kidding. But seriously, when you guys walked in today, did you feel this overwhelming sense of joy of learning and welcoming environment? And if you did, it's because our staff and custodial staff and administrators and everybody works really hard to do everything we can with the tools that we have. But the tools that we have are just a Band-Aid. They're not what we need. And coming from the Taj Mahal, also known as WIS, you can see that we are at a huge disadvantage here. At Woodside, when you walk in, you're immediately flooded. Is it hard to hear?
Just a little bit.
The kids say I'm too loud.
And if you want, you can lower the screen on the laptop so we can see you. Yeah.
See me?
There you go. A little bit more. Does it
I'm
go?
4'11", there's not much we can do. All right, is that better?
Yes.
Okay. So when you walk into Woodside, you're flooded with natural light. There's primary colors everywhere. It's an atmosphere of learning. You feel like you're in a learning environment. There's a lot of open space. There's lots of just welcoming feelings when you walk into that place. And when you walk in here, there's some natural light in that hallway there, although stay away from the second to last light fixture because it leaks on rainy days. We don't have those primary colors here. We have the colors that are mostly original to the building, although we've had some paint that was added. We do have moldy carpets, and we have a building that is literally falling apart, as you can see from the pictures here. So in the picture, we'll start at the top over there. That is a picture of a language arts classroom where the health teacher has to come in to teach her health lessons, and she has 3 carts that she has to set up every single period, and it's because we just don't have enough space here. And so she has to move into classrooms to teach, but those teachers also have to vacate, where they have to take their prep somewhere else, or they're eating lunch in their cars sometimes, and that's because that's the only option. We literally have teachers that are working out of closets. You can see the students below that picture, right there, the 3 gentlemen right there that are pushing that cart. They are doing so to help the teacher move her things from one class to the next. That is literally the only option. Otherwise, she can't teach her class. The middle picture there with the brick, that is the original chimney from 1955. You can see that it's crumbling and the brick pieces are falling out. That is still like that today. That middle picture looks a little bit divided. The part that's blue is actually science classroom. The part to the left right there you'll see is a teacher's office. They share. She can only access her office through either a classroom on the right, a classroom on the left, or by walking directly through the hazardous chemical hallway to exit. That's how she gets into her office every day. The picture all the way to the left is a 6th grade math classroom. Looks beautiful, bright colors, it's gorgeous, gorgeous. But if you look at the bottom, you'll see there's a large garbage can. That has been placed there for on rainy days. That beautiful pipe in the middle leaks. And normally we can fix that and we can make do, but when we have a really bad rainstorm, which you guys know happens every so often, that teacher has to take her classroom into the library, the media center, to teach, which then displaces all of the other students who are using the library, teachers who tutor in there, staff who take their reading groups, math groups, and the library media specialist who can't have any of her classes. So you can see there's a lot that we have to roll with to make do, and we're happy to do that, but with a new school, it would make the learning environment the best for students, and that's really why we're all here. On the bottom left, you can see the urinals there. That is the 8th grade boys' bathroom. And if you look below the urinals, you'll see that exposed pipe that's showing. There was hazardous sewage waste that has leaked out, and that has caused a sewage smell to permeate the library quite often, and it can be smelled pungently, if you will. That middle picture there is from the kitchen. It's actually the cast and lead pipes in the kitchen area underneath the walk-in freezer. That's what it looks like today. That picture was actually taken yesterday. And the picture on the bottom, the small one to second over from the right, is the south side gym picture. It's the flashing from the roof. It's actually, the flashing is pulling away from the building, and it's been patched multiple times. This is the last patch, which was done in the summer of 2000. And it's pulling away and it's causing leaks to the building as well. Ooh. Did I go ahead? No. Is that the same one? Okay, sorry. So what we welcome here is the fact of the matter is that education is all about opportunities and opening doors. And to quote a famous 6th grade teacher and good friend of mine, Mr. Messenger, who's in the room today, we already are approaching this motto with strikes against us. We don't have enough options and opportunities to compete with other schools. On a recent visit to Colchester Middle School, it was recently built, and it was easy to see that we were playing in Little League while they were playing in the majors. Their science, technology, STEAM programs, they were thriving. Students were thriving, they were actively engaged, teachers were thriving and engaged, and real learning was happening. They were able to offer their students 3D printing, laser printers, fabric cutters, and so much more that prepared those students for the learning that they need to happen today in the 21st century. In addition to that, a study that was conducted after the school opened, they found that discipline referrals went down. Behaviors that were encouraged actually increased on their own, and the surveys showed that students had a positive attitude towards school and valued learning. They were excited. They felt valued. At our current middle school here, we have classrooms that have a maximum of 3 outlets. We can't even offer our students here the opportunity to charge their Chromebooks during the day. We have 3 science classrooms that are adequate to conduct science labs, but we also have 3 that are not. And knowing this as a community, are we really putting our students first if knowing we continue to perpetuate this kind of learning environment? And thankfully, we do have great dedicated staff who have certainly put a lot of lipstick on this pig, as they say, but there really is only so much you can do, and for only so long. And you, as parents, can do everything, and you do, to give your children an advantage. And as teachers, we want to do the same. But we cannot give every advantage possible to these students within the confines of this building. So please help us give your children the advantages that they need and deserve. Because they need and deserve a safe, modern middle school that meets the current demands of the 21st century learning. We need to foster creativity and encourage our students towards innovation. We need to challenge them, and we need to set them up for success. Modern classrooms facilitate learning in a lot of different ways, and we will finally have the tools to meet those needs. And not only that, but we'll have a school that we're proud of, one that maybe another town can use as a model in their meetings for what an exceptional learning environment looks like. Students will proudly say that they've discovered a passion for learning in a way that they were never available to learn before. So let's make this happen, not because we want to, but because we need to. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane, for sharing your experience, your perspective. Before we get to Q&A, I'd like to share the timeline for this project. So the next big date is May 11th, which is next Wednesday. That's when the Town Council will discuss this project. And then May 26th, the Board of Finance will vote on the project. Assuming it passes both, the expectation is that a special town meeting will be set for early June. And then if the town votes favorably for the project, then we will submit our grant to the state of Connecticut by the end of June. There's a June deadline to submit the grant. By December, we should know if we are on the list for a grant approval for next year, and by summer of 2023, we would be able to potentially break ground, if approved. I'll hand it off to Shannon.
So just want to say thank you again for coming. So we are going to move into a question and answer. If anyone has questions they would like to ask, we have a microphone right over here on a music stand that you can come up to and ask your questions. I'm also going to welcome up Jeff Wazinski and Eddie Wadowski, who are part of the architectural team that we've been working with Tecton Architects. So if you had specific questions about the conceptual drawings, they are here as well. And if there are no further questions, you're more than welcome to continue on a tour or, yep, come up.
Can I just say it from
Yes.
here?
Yeah, we can repeat it.
So I'm assuming that the architects are the ones that came up with the design based on things they heard from the teachers and administration. Is there any school in this state that currently is designed that way that you could take a walk through?
Yep, so the question was, are there any other schools in the state that are designed similarly? I think, like, curricularly, you're asking about, like, the STEAM curriculum?
Well, I know a teacher in Middletown, and I'm not sure which school it is, but it was recently built, say within the last 5 years.
Yep.
And she was telling me about how horrible it was, about how much wasted space, what the architect came up with, that they stand on the second floor and you just look down into the cafeteria and it's noisy, and yes, there's a lot of light, but conceptually it doesn't work. So how do you make sure that doesn't happen here?
Okay, yeah, so looking at other school projects. So I'll have Tecton come up, but they do have a lot of experience with many other buildings that they can share to help answer that question. You can, if you want, there's a mic there, if you just want to use that mic.
Sorry.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Wazinski. Thank you for the question. It's a great question. Yes, we have designed similar schools. I think the closest examples that I would point to that are closest in geographically to your community is Colchester. That was a renovated new, but the center portion of that building is all new. It's a two-story structure, and it's set up in a very similar way to graphically what you saw on the plans tonight. And I think it illustrates not only the kind of the contemporary ideas of bringing in natural daylight and how that affects classroom learning, but it also provides examples of the breakout space that Rosanna was speaking to. So for a brand new ground up building, there's another building in Oxford that we just finished pre-pandemic, so about 2 or 3 years ago. And it's set up in a similar fashion. It's a slightly different configuration, but also similar. So we could provide additional graphics to show you what those plans look like as well. But thank you for the question.
Yep, go ahead.
I got a question. You're going to submit the grant for the grant in June, and you say if it'll be approved in December, will it be? Are we assured that it'll be approved, or what happens if it's not approved?
So the question was about the grant process with the state of Connecticut. We submit in June and then find out in December, and then what happens if it's not approved?
So usually if, what we've been told is if you make the list in December, that you will get the approval come the following June. It's a procedural thing. CSG's not here, they would be able to offer that. That's pretty much the understanding, right, Jeff?
Right. The grant application is submitted by June 30th. The priority list comes out in December 15th of this year. That list goes through the legislation and becomes approved. I can tell you that we have not had a project that was submitted for a grant application that wasn't approved, and I'm not aware of one in the state of Connecticut. There's a very thorough process to submit the grant application, and they're reviewed in a thorough way in between June 30th and December 15th.
Thank you for the question. You have a question?
Yes, you spoke about the hard costs and soft costs, but then also spoke about, you know, the STEAM classrooms and how they've been working well in other schools with like the 3D printers and everything. I'm wondering if the materials for these classrooms are included in those hard costs or soft costs, and if there's a breakdown for all the costs.
Okay, so the question is about hard costs and soft costs and some of the technology and science equipment that's being planned and how that is factored into the cost breakdown. Yep, I'll hand that one over to our architects as well.
Yeah, I'll give it a try. Good question. So in all of the science-related innovation lab spaces, generally speaking, the equipment that's in there, the 3D printing and all the devices that were explained earlier in the presentation would be included in the FF&E budget, which is included in the soft costs for the project.
And just so, and we don't have, at this point, there isn't a breakdown of each item in the classroom. That would happen when we get into the detailed design phase. So there could be, you know, points where priorities have to be made based off of that budgeting.
Can you just reiterate what that soft cost was, how much that was?
Oh, yeah, I can go back to that
Off
slide.
the top of my head, I don't know.
So 7.6 is the current estimate. Thank you.
And then the materials themselves in terms of like what goes into the classroom itself or the lab, that's included in the hard construction costs. And yes, there has been detail. We've worked with, there's an independent cost estimator that was engaged by CSG, and we provided narratives kind of as a sort of a standard based on what our past schools have included, and they've estimated the project based off of that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional questions? Go ahead.
So, you know, I also grew up here in town. I came to this school as well, and I have to tell you, just like you said earlier, my children went through the school. School hasn't changed a bit since I was here. So, you know, I think there's, from my perspective, you know, I can definitely see the need for a new school. My question, though, as a neighbor on Bowtown Manor, you're absolutely correct in saying that the drop-off situation is a complete mess. It just is. You come up over the hill on Gear Street, you know, you can rear-end a car if you're coming too fast because the traffic gets backed up. We live over here, cars are constantly dropping the kids off. We understand, we don't like it as neighbors, but we understand why it's taking place. That seems to be in the new design, not changing at all. The way I look at it, maybe I'm wrong, about how this entrance is over here. I don't, is that still going to be the same?
So that's definitely a valid concern, and it's something that we're planning to work out in the detailed design phase. Again, it's hard to finalize those routes until we know exactly the layout of the building, exactly where it's going to fall in that space.
Okay.
But we have had conversations about that. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Jeff?
Sure.
Yeah, so the entrances that are to the site that exist today would remain. The key difference, though, is that if you look at the site plans, either on the new or renovated new, the queue lines, the queue space on site for not only the buses but parent drop-off is much deeper. So the idea is that, you know, I think the existing challenges that getting into the site today it's congested. The idea is, and there needs to be a lot more detail in a traffic study, the idea is with these the extension of the drive lanes on the site, that'll extend the queue lanes to allow more cars onto the site for drop-off and more buses. So it certainly should improve that situation.
Right, so there'll basically be less people on the road and more people within these queue lines. So you're not going to have like people backed up into the neighborhoods.
And then just one follow-up question, if I may. I know that just in some conversations with some of my neighbors, their concern was with the soccer field. What's the proximity of the distance between the field to the property, to the town's property? you know, in other words,
So yeah, approximately 80 to 100 feet.
okay.
So from the tree buffer, that yellow line on the right side to the kind of the line where the soccer field is, it's about in between 80 and 100.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Great questions, thank you. All right, well, thank you very much for coming to the presentation. We have materials out back, take a brochure, sign up for our email list, continue getting information, and you can continue on the tours. And we'll still be here, so feel free to come up and ask us more questions and have a conversation. Thank you.